Just a few years ago, Rian Johnson was in the doghouse. After the failure and subsequent backlash of his previous feature, Star Wars: The Last Jedi, it seemed like he may never get back into the people's good graces. Then, out of nowhere, he made his best film to date, Knives Out. A movie that could not have come at a better time for him. It simultaneously patched up his rocky relationships with audiences and managed to be great on its own. It's a film that uses everything he's been known for up until this point without alienating even the most critical person. Subverting expectations, playing with the audience's perception, and having strong characters are just a few things that Rian absolutely nailed in Knives Out. First off, let's go back in time to the fallout of The Last Jedi.
Terrible!
Remember the biggest criticism of that film? I'm sure you've heard it 100 times now, subverting the audience's expectations. Knives Out does this too, but seeing as this is a murder mystery, the film playing with the audience's perception of what is really going on actually works.
Hitchcock hated whodunits, famously, and his whole thing about whodunits was it's a big build-up to one big surprise at the end, which was a very cheap coin for him, narratively. And that's why he was all about suspense. He's like, give them the information early and make them lean forward in their chair. And I love whodunits, and I fundamentally agree with Hitchcock's.
Anytime you're going into a murder mystery like this, you're immediately looking at the characters as suspects. Who did it and why is frequently the question we ask ourselves the moment the film starts. One brilliant thing the film does in the first act is revealing who the killer is. Rian doesn't want to play the game, the audience does, so he lays most of his cards on the table very early on.
Now, if what you said is true, I'm gone. There's no saving me. We have 6 minutes. We have got to get you out of this.
What point does this have? What does revealing the killer so early on accomplish? Put simply, this allows Rian to spin a web of treachery, pettiness, and family discord right under your nose. He plays with your expectations of a murder mystery because he knows that it will throw you off, which is exactly what it accomplishes. When you learn so early on what happened to the victim, the first thing you think is, what will happen now?
I do not know.
This actively pushes you to engage with it rather than simply trying to figure it out. If this was a lazily put together, long in the tooth exercise in boredom, who cares if it subverts your expectations? Knives Out manages to do what so many others fail at, and it nails the structure. This isn't a mind-blowing feat by any means. The structure of a story is basic, but it's also fundamental. Let's take this act by act and show how it perfectly hits every story beat at the exact right time. Of course, we start with the first act, which generally is used to set up characters, locations, tone, and to kick the story off. The rule of thumb is to establish all of this in roughly 30 to 35 minutes. The first item on any beat sheet is the setup. The way this film sets up the characters and tone is through these interviews with the family members. You get a good sense of who they are and how they'll act moving forward while establishing all of their relationships. During this, you must also at some point state the theme of the film within the first 10 minutes, usually around the 5 to 7 minute mark. And I think this does so with Laurie Strode's character, Jamie Lee Curtis.
We had our own secret way of communicating. I mean, you had to find that with Dad. You had to find a game to play with him, and if you did that, and you played by his rules...
The catalyst is next, which is when the main character actively decides to be a part of the story, and this is when Marta is forced, in this case, to tag along with Daniel Craig. After that is the break into the second act. The second act of a film usually introduces or fleshes out the B story straight out of Act 1. The B story is a plotline that is disconnected from the main character but will eventually link up with the A story. In this case, the B story is a flashback to the fateful night where Christopher Plummer offed himself.
Jesus ransom. Oh, there's so much of me in that kid. Confident, stupid, I don't know, protected. Playing life like a game without consequence.
Now that we've spent plenty of time showing this, we then move on to the segment of the story where our hero seemingly gets the upper hand. This is usually shown by the hero overcoming small obstacles, which our hero does by apparently outsmarting the detectives she is claiming to help.
It'd be coming up now to the time when the party ended. I can hang on to that.
Yeah.
Marta, stop.
What? What?
Marta, stay there. Marta, no, Marta, stay there, Marta. No,
Right here.
no.
If you,
Oh,
did you
all right,
call me?
All right, excuse me. Sweet beans.
Well, good morning, Mrs. Thrombey.
Then we get to the midpoint, where we hit a false peak. High or low, our hero has to encounter something that changes their way of thinking around this point. This happens when Marta is told she will acquire the entire wealth of the dead Christopher Plummer. Doing this helps roll us directly into the next segment, the bigger obstacles. Suddenly, this once inviting family turns on Marta at the drop of a hat. Marta has suddenly been forced into a situation where she is utterly alone. She can't trust the cops because she believes she's the killer and she can no longer fall back on the family for help. The obstacles are mounting.
Tell me your whole story on the drive over. I don't want any more surprises.
Following this is the all-important all is lost moment. Our hero is at her lowest point. Daniel Craig has heard the whole story and now knows the truth of her murderous accident. No getting out of it now, that is, until...
Do as I say, and everything will be just fine. I promise.
We are now propelled to the climax where twists and turns mount faster than you can believe or count. It's a flurry of energy, and before you know it, it's over. And the cherry on top of this all is this final shot mirroring the opening shot, but with a newfound context. A perfectly constructed screenplay has come and gone.
You want some more cookies? Great.
How are you doing? Not very good.
Typically, characters in these types of plot-driven films are pushed to the sidelines with bland or stereotypical personality traits. We are given a great look at these characters, though, in the interviews they are having with the cops. Everyone seems to have something to hide, and they all go about their specific way of doing so, which is great.
And if you think I am dumb enough to be baited into talking family business, into shit-talking my baby brother in front of a police detective and a state trooper...
Walt doesn't run shit.
Not only is the setup for them great, but as the film moves along, we slowly become aware of the character's true nature. This is underscored by this main rich family. Almost every character that isn't a cop or Ana de Armas is rich in this. And at first they seem down to earth and approachable. They tell Marta how much she belongs with them and how sorry they are that this happened. They welcome her in, they're warm to her, and even incorporate her into their family drama.
Family's from Paraguay. Linda really likes her work ethic. Immigrants, we get the job done.
As the film moves along, though, all of this starts to unravel. We see scenes early on where the family is welcoming her into the circle of discussion with them with open arms. Then a bit later, the film shows what actually happened.
And you're gonna hate hearing this, but it's true. America is for America.
Don't point at me.
Where's Martha? Is she still here?
Oh,
Martha,
God, don't.
Come on, come on over.
No, Richard.
Come on over, Martha, please, come over.
You're shitting me.
Martha.
She wasn't welcomed into their conversation. She was used as a piece in an argument amongst siblings. The facade of their kindness wears down little by little until they are threatening and attempting to extort her. What I love about this is that these characters were always like this. They were always secretly horrible people from the get-go. Through skilled writing and the use of visual storytelling, we see this only after the facade has faded away. Visual storytelling is one of the fundamentals of cinema. However, these days, telling a story through dialogue has become the norm.
All of this is one little girl's bedroom. Every moment. They can't communicate. It's infinitely complex. They have access to infinite time and space, but they're not bound by anything. They can't
Exposition reigns supreme in the modern era of filmmaking. Maybe it's because studios don't believe audiences will be able to keep up with what is happening on screen without it. I don't know. Whatever the reasoning behind it is, it doesn't work as well as visual storytelling, and in Knives Out, Rian Johnson makes the wise decision of telling large chunks of this story through visuals alone. Now, that's not to say that he doesn't use exposition. He does. In fact, almost every movie does at this point. There are times when there is nothing else you can do but fill the audience in through characters talking to each other. The point is, this film takes every opportunity to quiet the characters and let the visuals speak for themselves. There are lovely little moments where no words are spoken and you get everything needed from the scene. Like in this scene where Laurie Strode finds out her husband has been cheating on her with another man. She looks up at him as her cigarette sags off her lip and seems crushed by the news. The next time you see her husband, he has a fat black eye. There are so many perfect moments like this throughout the film, but they may not have had the payoff or impact they have without a simple setup. Using setups and payoffs as a storytelling tool is one of the most basic things you can put into your story. It's almost so simple at this point that people forget to utilize it. But you definitely should. One of the most gratifying elements and biggest reasons to rewatch this is for its subtle use of setups and payoffs. Like this one, where Jamie Lee Curtis is looking at a note from her father, which has little scorch marks all around it, implying that it is written in invisible ink that is only revealed with heat. This isn't something her husband was aware of when he found the note about his affair that appeared blank to him, but not to Jamie Lee Curtis. Or this one, when Christopher Plummer, R.I.P., says Ransom can't tell the difference between a prop and the real thing.
Until you can't tell the difference between a stage prop and a real knife.
Shit.
It sounds so simple, but adding these little elements to your story is what keeps people engaged and coming back for more. There is nothing more satisfying than rewatching a film like this and seeing a once mundane line of dialogue transform into something with weight simply because you know the payoff to it.
Ransom? Are you back again already?
These, along with many others, are the reasons why I love Knives Out. There is so much that is being juggled here. It's surprising that so few balls are dropped.
You want some more cookies? Great.
I could ramble on about the filmmaking or performances or even the set design, but I feel like those have been covered already. If you haven't seen this or you haven't watched it in a while, I encourage you to rewatch it. For me, it just gets better the more I see it.
An affair?
Yeah. Yes or no will do.
No.
Oh!